Y'all ready?
It's only 18%, but it is what it is.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة وصلوات الله وسلامه على نبينا المصطفى وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد. Today is the last session for Saturday's program, and the way the session is going to be is that each speaker is going to do 2 to 3 minutes, a few words about an issue connected to what the theme has been all about. And then after that, we're going to open up the floor for you brothers and sisters to ask your general questions, but we would prefer questions connected to things that you've heard or things that are concerning you, things that are of concern to you. So without any further ado, we're going to start to our far left with Sheikh Abu Muslima, because he's the eldest of everybody who's up here. So without any further ado, inshallah azza wa jalla, يتفضل مشكورا له. كلمتين دقيقتين 3 دقائق.
بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد. I want to remind myself and your brothers and sisters of this point in our religion. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ تَفَرَّقُوا وَاخْتَلَفُوا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتِ. Al-ayah where Allah ta'ala says, and don't be like those who differ and divide after clear proofs have come to them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا فَتَفْشَلُوا وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ وَاصْبِرُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الصَّابِرِينَ. And obey Allah and obey the Messenger and don't differ, or you will lose your strength and be failures. But be patient, indeed Allah is with the patient. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, لا تختلفوا فإن من كان قبلكم اختلفوا فهلكوا. In the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud in Bukhari, where the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, don't differ, because those who came before you differed, and they were destroyed. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, إنما هلك من كان قبلكم بسؤالهم واختلافهم على أنبيائهم. وكما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم in this hadith of Abu Hurairah, from Bukhari and others, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, people who came before you were destroyed because of too many questions, excessive questioning, and differing with their prophets. The Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said to Mu'adh and Abu Musa رضي الله عنهما, when he sent them out to give da'wah, يسرا ولا تعسرا وبشرا ولا تنفرا وتطاوعا ولا تختلفا. This hadith of Al-Bukhari, recorded about Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As, that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, be easy and don't be difficult. Give glad tidings or invite and don't chase away. And agree and don't disagree. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already decreed for us, as He says, وَلَا يَزَالُونَ مُخْتَلِفِينَ إِلَّا مَنْ رَحِمَ رَبُّكَ وَلِذَلِكَ خَلَقَهُم. To the end of these ayat, Allah ta'ala, He says, they will always differ, except those who your Lord showed His mercy on. And for that purpose, they were created. We are created to agree, be together upon the truth. And those who Allah shows mercy on, they will agree and be together upon the truth. But those who aren't favored with that, they will be the ones who differ. And lastly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if we do happen to differ for any reason or the other, فإن تنازعتم في شيء فردوه إلى الله والرسول. The famous ayah that we know, if you do differ in something, then take it back to Allah and the Messenger, meaning the Book of Allah, the Quran, and the Sunnah of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us to agree, to make this our model instead of the model of the kuffar. Let's agree to disagree. Oh Allah, don't let us agree to disagree. Bless us to agree. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد.
And after that كلمة طيبة inshallah, we're going to pass over the mic to our brother to our right, Sheikh Abu الزبير شديد محمد, فليتفضل مشكورا.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Sometimes we think when we talk about unity that means that we have to see eye to eye on everything in order for us to be within the context of unity. The Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in, as well as the Tabi'un and the generations that came after them, they differed on a number of issues. And some of those issues range from whether or not a Muslim's blood is halal to more minute matters regarding wudu. Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu used to make wudu wiping from the tip of his finger to his shoulder. Yeah. Because he interpreted the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, wash your hands up to the marafiq, to the elbow. He interpreted that as the elbow being a part of the shoulder, actually being this part of the shoulder being connected to the elbow. Considering a Muslim's blood halal. Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there were a group from amongst the Muslims who decided that they were not going to pay zakat. And Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, Wallahi law mana'uni iqalan kanu yu'addunahu ila an-nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam la uqatilannahum. He said, I swear by Allah, they deny me an iqal, the thing that Arabs you find when they wear the round thing on top of their gutra to hold it in place. That's called an iqal. And that was initially used to tie the knee of the camel to keep the camel kneeled. And it's insignificant. But Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu was making a point that if they deny me an iqal that they used to give to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as zakat, I will fight every single one of you. Many of the Sahaba were against Abu Bakr's position. Ummah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, as the narration mentioned, came back to Abu Bakr multiple times. And he said to him, كيف تقاتل من يقول أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمد رسول الله. How can you fight people who say أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله? How? These people took shahada. How can you spill their blood? This is not necessarily a fiqh issue. This is an issue of making someone's blood halal. It's deeper than that. And Umar said that I kept coming back to him trying to change his mind. He said, until I realized that Abu Bakr was right and all of us were wrong. That there's no way that Abu Bakr would take a stance on something like that and remain steadfast. So a lot of times we paint this picture of the Sahaba, we paint this picture of unity as if they were all on the same accord in terms of their views and their opinions about the approach to a particular issue or another. And this is provided in issues that we are allowed to differ in. Provided these are issues that allowances have been made for us to differ in those issues. But we, a lot of times, will take a difference of opinion on something and we'll interpret that as being oppositional to unity. Sometimes this plays out when you see different imams take differences of opinion on issues. And then what happens is that those imams, if their egos are not where they need to be, then sometimes that trickles over into the people who are, sometimes fanatical about those imams. And then those people begin to take a position, and then you have what is called ta'assub. You have fanaticism, and ta'assub leads to tahazzub, which leads to sectarianism. And then this is where the fragmentation and the division of the community comes into play. Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah ta'ala, one of his contemporaries is Ishaq ibn Rahoya, or Rahaway, depending on which madhab you follow. Alright? Ahlul Hadith call him Rahoya. This is one of, that's his name. One of the contemporaries of Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah ta'ala, is Ishaq ibn Rahoya. He said about him, Imam Ahmad said about him, Ishaq akhuna wa in yukhalifuna fi ashya. That Ishaq is my brother, even though he opposes me in many issues. Many issues. That's still my brother. What do you understand from that statement? That our differing in matters of the religion, that it is allowed for him as my brother in Islam. You'll see a brother with his pants beneath his ankles, and we'll refuse to give him the salam, or we'll look at him as if he's practicing a whole other religion. We have been conditioned at the moment we see somebody, the first thing we do is look down to see how far his pants are. And that will determine the rest of our interaction. Not considering whether the person is following a different madhab, not considering whether the person may be just ignorant, doesn't know any better, or not considering where that person is in their development of Islam. None of that is considered. Because we have this black and white mentality that it's either my opinion or no opinion. And we allow that differing to infringe on the asl of ukhuwa, the asl of brotherhood in our religion. I'll leave you with the last example, and hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, is more understood. It's mentioned in Sahih al-Bukhari that after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, many years later, a man by the name of Marwan ibn Hakam became the leader of the Muslims in a particular area, governor. And this was on the day of the Eid. And they were coming out, and one of the Sahaba, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, who was still alive during that time, as they were coming out for Salatul Eid, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri is walking towards the Musalla, and Marwan ibn Hakam is walking towards the Minbar. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri grabbed him by his hand and he said, what you are getting ready to do is not the sunnah that the Prophet ﷺ left us upon. Meaning, giving the khutbah first and then giving the salat last. That is opposite the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. We know on the day of the Eid that the salat is first and the khutbah is last. And Jumu'ah the khutbah is first and then the salat is last. So he said, you're abandoning something that the Prophet ﷺ left us upon. And Marwan turned to him and he said, قَدْ تَرَكَ النَّاسِ مَا كُنْتَ تَعْلَمُ مِنْ سُنَّةِ النَّبِي صلى الله عليه وسلم. He said, the people have abandoned what you used to follow from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, meaning people don't stick around and listen to the khutbah anymore. And here we are today. As soon as the khutbah, as soon as the salat is over, we off. IHOP, wherever you're going to go eat, the khutbah is really irrelevant. He said the people have abandoned what you used to know from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri didn't say anything else. He sat and he listened to the khutbah. He listened to the khutbah and then he got up and prayed. The point that I'm making is that Abu Sa'id al-Khudri didn't make a display that he disagreed with the fact that Marwan was taking a different position, even though it was something that was clearly against the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And as Hafidh ibn Hajar explained the hadith, he said that if it was something that was haram, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri would have never sat and listened to the khutbah. So it wasn't necessarily haram It was just khilaf al-awla. It was just against what was the more preferable opinion, which was the way that the Prophet ﷺ did it. Because had it been something that was completely haram, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, the companion of the Prophet ﷺ, would have never sat and listened to the khutbah. He would have considered it to be completely wrong. So what do you understand from that? That even though he saw a difference of opinion, he still did not allow him taking issue with the fact that he did something different than the Prophet ﷺ to force him to see him as an enemy or be oppositional towards him. And last, Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, as he debated with one of his students, Yunus, and he said to Yunus as they differed in the issue, and he came back the very next day and he grabbed Yunus by the hand and he said to him, أَلَا يَسْتَقِيمُ أَن نَكُونُ إِخْوَانًا وَإِنْ اخْتَلَفْنَا فِي مَسْأَلَةٍ. He said, isn't it more appropriate that we remain brothers for the sake of Allah, even though we differ in the issue? And he said, مَا أَعْلَمُ أَعْقِلُ مِنَ الشَّافِعِ. I don't know anyone that was more intelligent than Imam Shafi'i. That even though we differed in the issue, Imam Shafi'i came back the very next day, grabbed me by my hand, and he said, أَلَا يَسْتَقِيمُ أَن نَكُونُ إِخْوَانًا. Isn't it more appropriate for us, in terms of our religion, that we remain brothers, وَإِنْ اخْتَلَفْنَا فِي مَسْأَلَةٍ, even though we have differed in the issue? Even though we don't see eye to eye on the issue, should we allow that to overshadow the overall foundation of our religion, which is ukhuwa fillah, being brothers, sisters, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake? So keep that in mind, brothers and sisters, as we move forward, as we're working ourselves out of this negative that we've been in for a long time. Keep in mind that because we don't see eye to eye on something doesn't necessarily mean that I am not your brother or you're not my brother in Islam. هذا وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا.
After this kalima jamila, we're going to give the mic to our brother, our companion, our former student, one of the people of this area that Allah Azza wa Jalla has allowed to go and study, Sheikh Abu Dhahira. Barakallah fihi, فليتفضل مشكورا.
بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد. What I wanted to mention on the issue of differing, we mentioned yesterday, and people will have their opinions, people will have their viewpoints. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who decides on what is correct and what is incorrect. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, وَمَا اخْتَلَفْتُمْ فِيهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ فَحُكْمُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ ذَلِكُمُ اللَّهُ رَبِّي عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَإِلَيْهِ أُنِيبُ. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, and whatever you differ about, or if you differ about a thing, then its ruling belongs to Allah. That is Allah, your Lord. Upon Him I put my trust, and to Him I return. And so, yeah, that, Allah musta'an. Maybe we can ask them to turn it down. The ruling belongs to Allah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the one who says what's mandatory. Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who says what is recommended. Allah is the one who says what is makruh, what is disliked. And Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who says what is permissible and what is haram. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is the one who makes that decision. And it's not you, it's not me, it's not the shuyukh, it's not any of them. They're not the ones who decide what is halal and what is haram. That ruling belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so whatever we differ on, if we have a differencing of opinion, if we have a different viewpoint, then the only way to settle that and to come to an agreement, as our Shaykh Abu Muslima, hafidhullah ta'ala, as he mentioned, that we agree on what the ruling of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us and guide us. May Allah tabarak wa ta'ala put us all on the straight path.
I mean, after this kalima mukhtasira, we now give the majal to our brother, Al-Ustad Hassan Akbar, who has a book that he authored about unity. I met Hassan a few months ago for the first time ever. I had never heard of him, anything like that. We were in Malaysia and we hooked up. Had a lot of characteristics that I was really impressed with being a young brother. So I spoke to some of the people here and I told them, I know a brother, but we want to get him on the circuit, put him on, and let him start benefiting the community. They said, yeah, by all means. I reached out to Hassan. He said, yeah, I'm there. Consider that I'm there. So I would like you brothers and sisters to check out that book that he put together. And without any further ado, let Hassan give his kalim, inshallah. Tfaddal.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad, amma ba'du. Alhamdulillah, Allah has gathered us together on the issue of unity, and truly it is something very praiseworthy that we aspire to unite and to tighten the ranks between each other. Because definitely in New York, I'm sure in the tri-state area, New Jersey as well, there have been many issues that have come to divide us. Not only masjid against masjid, but we have seen the ugliness of division within a single masjid, where masajids have, split into 2 or 3. And so it was already a difficult time paying the bills and making sure that we are able to, pay for classes and provide services for the community. But then the division comes and splits the masjid in 2, and so now we're begging even more for money. And then splits it in 3, and now the masjid that it should be a place of remembering Allah, that should be a place of learning, is a place in which we're begging all the time, in which we're asking the people to give all the time. So definitely each and every one of us should strive to be the peacemakers within our own communities. As Brother Shadi Muhammad, he mentioned about the etiquette of differing, that although the companions, may Allah be pleased with all of them, they differed, they still work together with one another. And that point has to be stressed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in the Quran, وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. Remember Allah's favor upon you, that you were once enemies to one another. I mean, think about that. In Jahiliyyah, for those who came into the religion, we were enemies with certain people, with certain communities. Even when we entered into the religion, we may have not liked a certain brother for whatever reason or another. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of this religion, nothing else, not because of wealth, not because of clothes, not because of any other thing, the only thing that brought us together, that brought the companions together, and that brings us together and that ties us together, is this religion, is Allah's obedience, is believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in the messengership of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And so Allah, He mentions in this ayah that what was the result? That He brought our hearts together and that He made us brothers to one another. Think about that. Do you agree with everything your blood brother says or does? I know I don't. Do you agree with everything that your blood brother says or does in your family, in your own family? Your brother or your sister, I'm talking about your relatives. There are many things that we differ on, but does that take the brotherhood away from us? It shouldn't, but it does in our communities. There are many things that we may differ upon. There are many things that we may not agree with, but it shouldn't stop progress. Do you agree with every position your wife takes? Does your wife agree with every position that you have? But does that stop the progress of making sure the kids, their clothes are ironed, they have dinner prepared for them at night, that the house is a home? Does that stop and prevent children from coming in and from establishing families? Does it stop from having to pay the bills and being responsible? No. Our differing should not cause us to stop with the progress. And as has been mentioned before, we are 30 years in and we should be so far ahead, but we have to accept the reality that we have now And remember that Allah, as long as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us life, it is never too late to start something good going forward. And last but not least, one major problem that we have in our community is that even though we may disagree with an individual, even though our disagreement may reach a huge and hot level, the one thing that we should never do for our own good is never forfeit the rights of our brothers and sisters in Islam. What do I mean by that? The Prophet ﷺ, he said that each Muslim has 5 rights upon his brothers. I love when I ask certain masajid, I ask the community, the people, they remember Yarhamukallah, they remember returning the salam, and then the other 3 we get lost. But you find that we may disagree with a brother, and we don't even fulfill those rights. If you leave this conference, make sure you have it in your heart and in your chest that you will fulfill the bare minimum of brotherhood that is due upon you. And that is that you fulfill the rights of your Muslim brother. That when he invites you to something, you respond to his invitation. You respond. That when he greets you with salam, that you respond to that salam. That is a right. Don't you want Allah to fulfill your rights? Don't you want Allah to ensure that you get the rights from your wives and from your community and from yourself and from your wealth? Don't you want the people to give to you? So my dear brothers and sisters, remember that the rights that our brothers, they have upon us, that's not optional. As long as they are a Muslim and you consider yourself a Muslim, it is upon you, it is a duty, it is a responsibility that you fulfill those rights upon your brothers so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may fulfill the rights that is due to us. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from among those who act upon His obedience. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
To summarize it, Ikhwani, and to bring the point out to all of your attention, Shaykh Abu Muslima gave us ayat of the Quran talking about the evil of division. And he gave us some ahadith talking about the evils of division. And that's what he gave us. The best kalam is kalam of Allah, and the best speech is speech of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he did his job. Shadid talked about some of the examples how the companions and the righteous people from this Ummah of the past, how they used to have division, but that division didn't lead to killing each other, and it didn't lead to what it has led to amongst people during our time, people with ignorance, desires, and so forth and so on. So the fact that we disagree doesn't mean that we are not united. We have to agree on everything in order to be considered people who are unified. And then Abu Bahira talked about an important point that Allah Azza wa Jalla is ultimately the one who decides who's right and who's wrong. It's not this side of either side of the degree, the people who are disagreeing, but it's what Allah said. He brought some ayat. And then Hassan came and he talked about the ugly face and manifestation of al-ikhtilaf and division, and how because we disagree and we don't see things the same way eye to eye, it doesn't prevent us from being brothers and sisters and giving each other our haqq. I want to bring your attention to something important about what just happened, and none of that was scripted, and that is all 4 of the speakers used ayat of the Quran, and not a single one of them repeated the same ayat, which is a sign indication that the ayat of ikhtilaf are kathiratun wa kathiratun jidda. It's not a joke. All of them used a hadith, and none of them repeated a hadith that the other one used, because the ahadith that prohibit and prevent ikhtilaf are kathiratun wa kathiratun jidda. So to add on to that, I want to draw your attention to something. That is, first of all, the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we became Muslims, and we're trying to be upon this. Man tashabbaha biqawmin fahuwa minhum. Anyone who resembles a people, then he is from those people. We have to make jihad of our nafs, to be unique and distinct in our existence. And we have to be unlike the people of polytheism, the mushrikeen. And the mushrikun, the polytheists, they have many characteristics. And one of the characteristics that they have is ikhtilaf. So if you're a person of Tawheed, a person of Islam, then you have to make a conscious effort. We have to make a collective conscious effort not to be like the mushrikeen. There's people over here doing their thing. It's kind of disturbing us, some of us anyway. I don't want anybody getting up, standing up, start doing a stinky leg and a nay-nay. But here we are in this spot trying to call people to Tawheed and unity and so on. So Allah Ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, وَلَا تَكُونُوا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ مِنَ الَّذِينَ فَرَّقُوا دِينَهُمْ وَكَانُوا شِيَعًا كُلُّ حِزْبٍ بِمَا لَدَيْهِمْ فَرِحُونَ. I'm sure you must have heard this ayah since yesterday. Don't be from the polytheists, the mushrikeen. Those people who have ikhtilaf, they make tafarruq and they divide. And each group is happy with what they're doing and what they have. So that masjid is doing his thing, they're doing their thing, they're doing this thing, that madhab, this madhab, these people, that people. Ikhtilaf and tafarruq, dividing and being different, is from what the mushrikun used to do. Allah Ta'ala also mentioned in the Quran, mentioning 4 of the most important prophets and messengers. They're called the Ulul Azm. Fasbir kama sabara ulul azmi min ar-rusul. Be patient the way the 5 major messengers were patient. And their story is in detail in the Quran. Gotta know their story in detail. In chronological order, Noah, the first most important one, and then Ibrahim, and then Musa, and then Isa, and then Muhammad, salawatullahi wassalamu alayhi. Allah said about 4 of them, وَشَرَعَ لَكُم مِّنَ الدِّينِ مَا وَصَّى بِهِ نُوحًا وَالَّذِي أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ وَمَا وَصَّيْنَا بِهِ نُوحًا وَمَا وَصَّيْنَا بِهِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَمُوسَى وَعِيسَى أن أقيموا الدين ولا تتفرقوا فيه كبر على المشركين ما تدعوهم إليه. What has been legislated for you, Muhammad, in your community is the same thing that was legislated, that was told to and given to Noah, the first Rasul. And it was also told and given to, likewise, it was revealed to you, it was revealed to Ibrahim, it was revealed to Musa, it was revealed to Isa, that you establish the deen and don't have ikhtilaf in the deen. And then he said, كَبُرَ عَلَى الْمُشْرِكِينَ مَا تَدْعُوهُمْ إِلَيْهِ. It is difficult on the mushrikeen what you're calling them to, Ya Muhammad. You're calling them to a tawheed, where it's unification, worshiping Allah alone, praying towards the same qibla, taking one book, the Quran, one Nabi and the Rasul for direction, one Sunnah, and one brotherhood. There's a problem with the kuffar, the mushrikeen. They don't want to do it. So having ikhtilaf and being the reason that ikhtilaf is created, perpetuated, and sustained, it is from the actions of the people of polytheism. So ajiban to that person from amongst us wants to be a person of the sunnah, wallah alhamd, he'll have the miswak, he'll have those nice important aspects of the sunnah. He prays sunnah prayers, 2 rakats when he enters in the masjid, and issues like that. But lo and behold, if you look at him, he or she is an individual who, at every step of the way in their existence, they're creating ikhtilaf between the people unnecessarily. So with that being the case, there is a resounding kalima and advice from the stage that we all have to make jihad, not to be the people who create this issue of differing, but instead we have to do our best to unite based on understanding of unification. And with that being the case, we're going to open up the floor right now for any questions that you may have. We're going to ask the brothers and sisters from the audience. Let your question be to the point. Let it be succinct. We don't want lectures from the audience and also from the shuyukh here. When we get the question, let's just get to the point, because we'll probably have a lot of questions. So if we see the people not really asking a lot of questions, then you're allowed to kind of like be long-winded if we see that. But let's give the people an opportunity to ask as many questions as possible. Preferably those questions connected to the theme, but if you have general questions, no problem. So we're going to begin with my man right here. Stand up just so we can hear what you're saying. Barakallahu feek. Ask a question, I'll repeat it so that it'll be recorded and that we understood the question. If you want a particular panel member to answer the question, then you designate the person you want for that question. Fadl.
My question is, like you were talking about regarding ikhtilaf, how much of it should we accept? Like in Philadelphia, where I'm from, it's a Hanafi masjid. I know that the Hanafis, they say that you shouldn't, if you don't wipe over your, if you don't wash your feet, your wudu's not accepted. So when I go into their masjid, in my brain, I'm like, is it arrogant for me to wipe over my feet in front of these people so they can have in their brain, like, oh, this man's not accepted? Or is it hikmah for me to take my socks off and wash my feet? And is it wrong for me to feel that way and to maybe think about this man and say, I don't want this man thinking that way? You know what I mean? Maybe he's standing next to me in prayer and it's like, this man's prayer isn't accepted. How far should we accept certain things about ikhtilaf? Like, you know what I'm saying, when you understand, is it arrogant for me to be on that side of things? The question is for you.
Excellent question. The brother wants to know as it relates to the issue on the circuit. Put him on and let him start benefiting the community. They say, yeah, by all means. I reached out to Hassan. He said, yeah, I'm there. Consider myself. Consider that I'm there. So I would like you brothers and sisters to check out that book that he put together. And without any further ado, let Hassan give his kalim, inshallah. Tfaddal.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad, amma ba'du. Alhamdulillah, Allah has gathered us together on the issue of unity. And truly it is something very praiseworthy that we aspire to unite and to tighten the ranks between each other. Because definitely in New York, I'm sure in the tri-state area, New Jersey as well, there have been many issues that have come to divide us. Not only masjid against masjid, but we have seen the ugliness of division within a single masjid, where masajids have, split into 2 or 3. And so it was already a difficult time paying the bills and making sure that we are able to, pay for classes and provide services for the community. But then the division comes and splits the masjid in 2, and so now we're begging even more for money. And then splits it in 3, and now the masjid that it should be a place of remembering Allah, that should be a place of learning, is a place in which we're begging all the time, in which we're asking the people to give all the time. So definitely each and every one of us should strive to be the peacemakers within our own communities. As Brother Shadi Muhammad, he mentioned about the etiquette of differing, that although the companions, may Allah be pleased with all of them, they differed, they still work together with one another. And that point has to be stressed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in the Quran, وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. Remember Allah's favor upon you, that you were once enemies to one another. I mean, think about that. In Jahiliyyah, for those who came into the religion, we were enemies with certain people, with certain communities. Even when we entered into the religion, we may have not liked a certain brother for whatever reason or another. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of this religion, nothing else, not because of wealth, not because of clothes, not because of any other thing, the only thing that brought us together, that brought the companions together, and that brings us together and that ties us together, is this religion, is Allah's obedience, is believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in the messengership of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And so Allah, He mentions in this ayah that what was the result? That He brought our hearts together and that He made us brothers to one another. Think about that. Do you agree with everything your blood brother says or does? I know I don't. Do you agree with everything that your blood brother says or does in your family, in your own family, your brother or your sister? I'm talking about your relatives. There are many things that we differ on, but does that take the brotherhood away from us? It shouldn't, but it does in our communities. There are many things that we may differ upon. There are many things that we may not agree with, but it shouldn't stop progress. Do you agree with every position your wife takes? Does your wife agree with every position that you have? But does that stop the progress of making sure the kids, their clothes are ironed, they have dinner prepared for them at night, that the house is a home? Does that stop and prevent children from coming in and from establishing families? Does it stop from having to pay the bills and being responsible? No. Our differing should not cause us to stop with the progress. And as has been mentioned before, we are 30 years in and we should be so far ahead, but we have to accept the reality that we have now and remember that Allah, as long as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us life, it is never too late to start something good going forward. And last but not least, one major problem that we have in our community is that even though we may disagree with an individual, even though our disagreement may reach a huge and hot level, the one thing that we should never do for our own good is never forfeit the rights of our brothers and sisters in Islam. What do I mean by that? The Prophet ﷺ, he said that each Muslim has 5 rights upon his brothers. I love when I ask certain masajid, I ask the community, the people, they remember Yarhamukallah, they remember returning the salam, and then the other 3 we get lost. But you find that we may disagree with a brother and we don't even fulfill those rights. If you leave this conference, make sure you have it in your heart and in your chest that you will fulfill the bare minimum of brotherhood that is due upon you. And that is that you fulfill the rights of your Muslim brother. That when he invites you to something, you respond to his invitation. You respond. That when he greets you with salam, that you respond to that salam. That is a right. Don't you want Allah to fulfill your rights? Don't you want Allah to ensure that you get the rights from your wives and from your community and from yourself and from your wealth? Don't you want the people to give to you? So my dear brothers and sisters, remember that the rights that our brothers, they have upon us, that's not optional. As long as they are a Muslim and you consider yourself a Muslim, it is upon you, it is a duty, it is a responsibility that you fulfill those rights upon your brothers so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may fulfill the rights that is due to us. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from among those who act upon His obedience. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
To summarize it, and to bring the point out to all of your attention, Sheikh Abu Muslima gave us ayat of the Quran talking about the evil of division. And he gave us some ahadith talking about the evils of division. And that's what he gave us. The best kalam is kalam of Allah, and the best speech is speech of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he did his job. Shadid talked about some of the examples, how the companions, the righteous people from this Ummah of the past, how they used to have division, but that division didn't lead to killing each other, and it didn't lead to what it has led to amongst people during our time, people of ignorance, desires, and so forth and so on. The fact that we disagree doesn't mean that we are not united. We have to agree on everything in order to be considered people who are unified. And then Abu Bahira talked about an important point that Allah Azza wa Jalla is ultimately the one who decides who's right and who's wrong. It's not this side of either side of the degree, the people who are disagreeing, but it's what Allah said. He brought some ayat. And then Hassan came and he talked about the ugly face and manifestation of al-ikhtilaf. and division. And how, because we disagree and we don't see things the same way eye to eye, doesn't prevent us from being brothers and sisters and giving each other our haqq. I want to bring your attention to something important about what just happened. And none of that was scripted. And that is, all four of the speakers used ayat of the Quran, and not a single one of them repeated the same ayat, which is a sign indication that the ayat of ikhtilaf are kathiratun wa kathiratun jidda. It's not a joke. All of them used a hadith, and none of them repeated a hadith that the other one used. Because the ahadith that prohibit and prevent ikhtilaf are kathiratun wa kathiratun jidda. So to add on to that, I want to draw your attention to something. That is, first of all, the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we became Muslims, and we're trying to be upon this. Man tashabbaha biqawmin fahuwa minhum. Anyone who resembles a people, then he is from those people. We have to make jihad of our nafs, to be unique and distinct in our existence. And we have to be unlike the people of polytheism, the mushrikeen. And the mushrikun, the polytheists, they have many characteristics. And one of the characteristics that they have is ikhtilaf. So if you're a person of Tawheed, a person of Islam, then you got to make a conscious effort. We have to make a collective conscious effort not to be like the mushrikeen. There's people over here doing their thing. It's kind of disturbing us, some of us anyway. I don't want anybody getting up, standing up, start doing a stinky leg and a nay-nay. But here we are in this spot trying to call people to Tawheed and unity and so forth and so on. So Allah Ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, وَلَا تَكُونُوا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ من الذين فرقوا دينهم وكانوا شيعا كل حزب بما لديهم فرحون. I'm sure you must have heard this ayah since yesterday. Don't be from the polytheists, the mushrikeen. Those people who have ikhtilaf, they make tafarruq and they divide. And each group is happy with what they're doing and what they have. So that masjid is doing his thing, they're doing their thing, they're doing this thing, that madhab, this madhab, these people, that people. Ikhtilaf and tafarruq, divided and being different, is from what the mushrikun used to do. Allah Ta'ala also mentioned in the Quran, mentioning four of the most important prophets and messengers. They're called the Ulul Azm. Fasbir kama sabara ulul azmi min ar-rusul. Be patient the way the five major messengers were patient. And their story is in detail in the Quran. Gotta know their story in detail. In chronological order, Noah, the first most important one, and then Ibrahim, and then Musa, and then Isa, and then Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi. Allah said about four of them, وَشَرَعَ لَكُم مِّنَ الدِّينِ مَا وَصَّى بِهِ نُوحًا وَالَّذِي أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ وَمَا وَصَّيْنَا بِهِ نُوحًا وَمَا وَصَّيْنَا بِهِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَمُوسَى وَعِيسَى أَنْ أَقِيمُوا الدِّينَ وَلَا تَتَفَرَّقُوا فِيهِ كَبُرَ عَلَى الْمُشْرِكِينَ مَا تَدْعُوهُمْ إِلَيْهِ. What has been legislated for you, Muhammad, in your community is the same thing that was legislated, that was told to and given to Noah, the first Rasul. And it was also told and given to, likewise, it was revealed to you, it was revealed to Ibrahim, it was revealed to Musa, it was revealed to Isa, that you establish the deen and don't have ikhtilaf in the deen. And then he said, كَبُرَ عَلَى الْمُشْرِكِينَ مَا تَدْعُوهُمْ إِلَيْهِ. It is difficult on the mushrikeen what you're calling them to, Ya Muhammad. You're calling them to a tawheed, where it's unification, worshiping Allah alone, praying towards the same qibla, taking one book, the Quran, one Nabi and the Rasul for direction, one Sunnah, and one brotherhood. There's a problem with the kuffar, the mushrikeen. They don't want to do it. So having ikhtilaf and being the reason that ikhtilaf is created, perpetuated, sustained, it is from the actions of the people of polytheism. So ajiban to that person from amongst us wants to be a person of the sunnah, wallah alhamd, he'll have a miswak, he'll have those nice important aspects of the sunnah. He prays sunnah prayers, 2 rakats when he enters in the masjid, and issues like that. But lo and behold, if you look at him, he or she is an individual who, at every step of the way in their existence, they're creating ikhtilaf between the people unnecessarily. So with that being the case, there is a resounding kalima and advice from the stage that we all have to make jihad, not to be the people who create this issue of differing, but instead we have to do our best to unite based upon understanding of unification. And with that being the case, we're going to open up the floor right now for any questions that you may have. We're going to ask the brothers and sisters from the audience, let your question be to the point, let it be succinct. We don't want lectures from the audience and also from the shuyukh here. When we get the question, let's just get to the point, because we'll probably have a lot of questions. So if we see the people not really asking a lot of questions, then you're allowed to kind of like be long-winded if we see that. But let's give the people an opportunity to ask as many questions as possible. Preferably those questions connected to the theme, but if you have general questions, no problem. So we're going to begin with my man right here. Stand up just so we can hear what you're saying. Barakallahu feek. I'll ask the question, I'll repeat it so that it'll be recorded and that we understood the question. If you want a particular panel member to answer the question, then you designate the person you want for that question. Fadl.
My question is, like you were talking about regarding ikhtilaf, how much of it should we accept? Like in Philadelphia, where I'm from, it's a Hanafi masjid. I know that the Hanafis, they say that you shouldn't, if you don't wipe over your, if you don't wash your feet, your wudu's not accepted. So when I go into their masjid, in my brain, I'm like, is it arrogant for me to wipe over my feet in front of these people so they can have in their brain like, oh, this man's salat not accepted? Or is it hikmah for me to take my socks off and wash my feet? And is it wrong for me to feel that way and to maybe think about this man and say, I don't want this man thinking that way. You know what I mean? Maybe he's standing next to me in prayer and it's like, this man's prayer isn't accepted. How far should we accept certain things about ikhtilaf? Like, you know what I'm saying, when you understand, is it arrogant for me to be on that side of things? The question is for you.
Excellent question. The brother wants to know as it relates to the issue of differences of opinions, some of them in terms of what is in the balance, some of it is pretty serious. Because certain people in certain madhabs, they have certain opinions about things that they're pretty serious. And he wants to know, how far should we look at that issue? And there are many cases, like the one that he said. I'll give you one that's even bigger than that. In the Hanafi madhab, they have the opinion that a lady can get married without her wali. The Prophet ﷺ said there is no nikah without a wali. And then Imam Abu Hanifa was the opinion that she can get married without her wali. So a brother finds a girl, the father's not in agreement with the marriage, so he takes the girl and gets married at a masjid without the wali. Now the father gets upset, and now we're going to have bloodshed. So is that an ikhtilaf that we should tolerate, or is it an ikhtilaf that shouldn't be tolerated? So again, ikhwani, part of the fiqh of al-Islam, it entails from us that we take the ikhtilaf and we understand that all ikhtilaf is not the same. Shadi gave that example early on about the ikhtilaf, about this issue of wudu, and then the ikhtilaf about the blood of the people. So all ikhtilaf doesn't deserve that we take the dunya and we turn it upside down. So I would say very easily and quickly, as Allah said in the Quran, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'idati al hasana wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan." Call to the way of your Lord with hikmah and give a good preaching and argue in a way that is best and most appropriate. Al-hikmah is putting things in their proper place, knowing what to say, how to say it, when to say it, who to say it to. So the thing that you're having ikhtilaf with this particular individual may require that you just don't say anything. And the ikhtilaf or the issue with this individual may require that you do something in front of him because he's going to get the message. He did it and he saw it. And the ikhtilaf with this individual is that you sit him down and you try to discuss and debate with him. And the ikhtilaf of that one is you just leave him alone. So you have to determine, and that comes with experience, it comes with fiqh, it comes with many issues. Allah just giving you the tawfiq. But I think the main thing about what this brother is asking is we have to not make an ikhtilaf that small and turn it into something that is bigger than what it has to be. An ikhtilaf of the man who is musbil. I believe al-isbal is from the major sins. But there are some scholars who took the position that is permissible, although it's weak. The dhikr bees, I believe it's not implemented an innovation, in my opinion. But there are some bona fide, legitimate scholars who took the other position. Shaving the beard, I believe, is a major sin. But there are some scholars who said you can shave your beard, you can trim your beard, and other than performing Hajj and Umrah. So you give your point of view and you keep it moving. As for looking down on people, being judgmental towards people, being rough and tough is a problem. And the other side is a problem as well. Everything is ikhtilaf, and ikhtilaf is a mercy. La, you gotta be in the middle, the sirat al-mustaqim. Good question, Akhi. So let us keep the ball rolling with these good questions that we get benefit from. Anybody else? Anybody else? Hey, tfaddal ya akhi.
My question is, what will you say to those who say that this unity that your brothers are now calling to isn't any different than, let's say, the Ikhwani principles and the likes of this, what they agree upon, and leave off what they disagree upon? What's the difference here?
Excellent question number 2. This brother's asking, this thing that we're calling the people to about, hey, let's unite ourselves. Some people may say this attempt of yours and this call to unity is no different than the call of the Ikhwan al-Muslimin, a group that they come up with principles that are not consistent with the Quran and the Sunnah in order to achieve their goals and their objectives. And one of their principles that is batil and is a problem is their statement that we will cooperate with each other in what we agree upon. And what we disagree upon, we'll excuse each other and we'll overlook each other. Although that principle is not totally batil, but the way they use it, the way they understand it. So we're going to allow, inshallah, Sheikh Abu Muslima to deal with that particular question. And then Sister Now I got to repeat it for the
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulullah ma ba'd. I asked the brothers not to record me. I thought I did that.
I didn't hear it. I didn't know.
I want to repeat an ayah that one of the brothers said, or Sheikh Abu Lahira, وَمَا اخْتَلَفْتُمْ فِيهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ فَحُكْمُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ. What you differ in, and the verdict is with Allah. So as it pertains to differencing is not okay. And we can't just keep saying we differ and just keep leaving it there. You don't have a right to. It's Allah's judgment call, so let Allah call it. If you open your mouth and you say that you differ, then bring your proof to show your stance that you stand on. Stop just saying we differ, because it's not okay for us to differ. One of the hadiths that I was quoting, Prophet ﷺ said, don't differ, because those who came before you differed and were destroyed, because they were reciting the Quran differently, in different ways, but both of those ways were okay. So both of the ways are okay because it's based on the Quran and the Sunnah, then that's acceptable. For us to practice this ayat in that way and that hadith in that way, that's not really differencing, it's variety more than differencing. I think Abu Osama answered your question when he said that principle is falsehood. True unity is coming together upon the correct belief and practice of the Quran and the Sunnah, the way that it was believed in and practiced by the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba. That's the unity that I pray that we're calling to it. But to overlook what we differ in, as the Shaykh was saying, it's not all entirely false, but the way you are using it is false, that we're going to overlook each other when those matters aren't really the matters of the religion. But we're not going to overlook each other when we oppose Allah's book and the Sunnah of His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're going to clarify it and leave it at that. Inshallah ta'ala, as was already mentioned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
The Shia of Iran, Iraq, and other places, they curse Abu Bakr and Ummah. And they say that the wife of the Prophet ﷺ was the most beloved human being to him, was a lady who committed zina. And that when the Prophet would leave his house in the morning, ﷺ, the Jews would line up at the front door, and they would come in one by one and have sex with Aisha. And instead of going and washing herself, she would just lay there and wait for the next Jew to come to do it. And then after she got finished with everybody and they went out the back door, then she would get up and not make a ghusl and pray. So this is what they say. But they also say that Muhammad Rasulullah. So we agree, Muhammad Rasulullah. So we work with that. But this ikhtilaf between us, we say we overlook that. I'm going to say, and I speak on behalf of all of you, our biological mothers, many of which are not even Muslims yet, may Allah guide all of them to Islam. Put them in the Jannatul Firdaus without hisab wa adab. If somebody said that about my biological mother, Miss Mamie, I'm going to send them to that special place. What about the mother of the Prophet? So the wife of the Prophet was our mothers. So we don't look over every ikhtilaf like that. Okay, third question. Fadl ya Sheikh on the left, over there. The Sheikh on the left by the door. Sit down.
All right. Earlier today, I think it was today, you talked about a lay person being okay not to really study or be able to know certain things. Well, if a lay person doesn't know, then they keep getting caught up with somebody telling them. Just like, for instance, if the lay person just sitting in here, they're not really studying, they just listen to what you guys and you brothers are saying, and everybody talking the truth. But if they just listen to you, they still ear hustle. So why is it not important for us to get some type of knowledge about Islam so we can be able to say, hey, I don't know if that was right what you just said, then they can go back and study.
Now the Sheikh asked a really important question as well. Question dealing with our reality. Many of the people, we're on different levels, but many of the people, they just leave themselves uneducated in the religion. So they just listen to talks here and there. Hopefully the people who are talking to them are telling them the truth. So the question is, how much is the person, the lay person, one of us, the normal person, how much is he responsible to learn his religion? Or is it okay for each and every one of us just to listen to talks? That's all, we just listen to talks and we hope that what we're hearing is true. So how do we deal with that? And what's the balance in it? Fadda Abu Zubayr.
الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه كما يحب ربنا ويرضاه وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. I think it was Imam Ali Davis who actually made that comment. And in the context of, this is not me necessarily interpreting his words, but just what I understood from what he was saying, and that was that not all, and I hate to use the term, but that was his term, not all lay people are responsible for being students of knowledge and learning the religion on the level that students of knowledge are learning the religion. And what he meant by that was that everyone is not going to be a student of knowledge. Everyone is not going to be studious to learn their religion on the level that many of us as teachers, preachers, imams would like to see people learned and educated. That's just the reality. And I don't think that he was saying that it's not incumbent upon you to learn your religion.
That's right.
He was speaking more so to the reality that everybody is not going to be that.
No.
Yes, there is ilm wajib. There is knowledge that is incumbent upon every Muslim to know. It is incumbent upon every Muslim to know his shahada. You bore witness to La ilaha illallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands you in the Quran, فَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنبِكَ. Have knowledge that there's nothing worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's Allah commanding you. That's a command form in the Arabic language. فَعْلَمْ. Know. So that is Allah commanding you to have knowledge of La ilaha illallah. The scholars have explained that La ilaha illallah has 7 conditions. 7 conditions to La ilaha illallah. Scholars have put it in the form of poetry. Al-ilmu wal-yaqinu wa-qabulu wal-inqiyadu fadri ma aqulu wa-ikhlas wa-sidq wa-mahabba wa-faqaq Allahu lima ahabba. 7 conditions to La ilaha illallah. That is incumbent upon every Muslim to know that. Why? Because these are one of the questions that you're going to be asked in your grave. And there is no blind following when it comes to the basics of your religion that you should know. The Prophet ﷺ told us that the hypocrite will be asked these 3 questions in the grave. Man rabbuk, ma dinuk, wa ma taqulu fi hadha alladhi ursila ilaykum. Who is your Lord? What is your religion? And what do you say about this man that was sent to you? The hypocrite will say, sami'tu nas yaquluna kada faqultu. The hypocrite will say, I heard people saying such and such, and I just said what they said. And how do the angels respond to this person? These angels, they carry with them a mallet, and they strike this person. And the scream that he or she lets out, everything in the heavens and the earth can hear it, with the exception of the thaqalan, the human being, and the jinn. Which means that there's no blind following when it comes to matters of aqidah, especially the basics of our religion, la ilaha illallah. You are responsible for knowing how to pray. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us, wa aqimus salah. Establish the salah. Allah didn't say pray. There's a difference. Look at the usloob that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used. He said, wa aqimus salah. And establish the salah. Which means that there are rules, regulations, there are wajibat, there are arkan, the mustahabat, all types of issues related to the salah that it is incumbent upon every Muslim to know. So, knowing your shahada is an obligation. You are going to be asked about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in your grave. It's incumbent upon you to respond. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "La yu'minu ahadukum hatta akuna ahabba ilayhi min waladihi wa walidihi wa nasi ajma'in." That none of you will truly believe until I become more beloved to you than your children, than your parents, your children, and all of mankind. And there's no way that you can say that you love Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam if you don't know him. So you have to know La ilaha illallah, you have to know Muhammad Rasulullah, you have to know how to pray. You have to know the arkan of salah. You have to know the wajibat of salah. You have to know the mustahabbat of salah and mustahsinat of salah. You have to know these things. This is a commandment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now as it relates to zakat, is it incumbent upon everyone to know how to pay zakat? No. This is not in wajib. It's not an obligation because some of us will probably never have the opportunity to pay zakat. When does learning zakat become an obligation on you? When you meet the nisab, then you should know how much you have to pay and how that zakat is distributed. Who it's distributed to, the categories, the asnaf, al-mustahiqeen al-zakat, the asnaf, the categories of people that are entitled to zakat. But that happens as the same thing with hajj. So when we talk about the matters that is incumbent, there are matters that you are responsible for knowing about your religion. What this sheikh said about this imam, or what this sheikh said about this one, or what this sheikh said about that one, is that something that you are it is incumbent upon you to know? No. Not at all. Especially with the increase of that going on today. It's almost difficult. Every time you turn around, there's a new imam, a new student of knowledge being warned against. And to be honest with you, many of us are more privy to those issues than we are the conditions of La ilaha illallah. If I asked you right now how many imams have warned against me, or any other imam on this stage, you could probably give me the whole rundown. Sheikh Rabi'a said this one about this one. Sheikh Ubaid said this one about this one. You give me the whole rundown. I ask you what's the 7 conditions of La ilaha illallah? Faqid al-shay, la yu'ti.
Allahu Akbar.
Somebody who doesn't have something can't give you what they don't have. I ask you the basics, the 7 conditions of La ilaha illallah. Give them to me. Can't. I can ask you, what are the arkan of salat? We just prayed Salatul Maghrib and Isha. What are the pillars of salat? The same prayer that you pray 5 times a day. And many cannot give. Here again, minoring in the major, majoring in the minor. And that is the mentality that we have to change. We have to learn the matters that is incumbent upon us to learn. And those matters that are mustahabbat, that are recommended, and those things that, would help you perfect your religion, then those are matters that we can get to at a time when it is, appropriate for us to get to them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I hope that answers the question.
We have a question from one of the handmaidens of Allah Azza wa Jalla in the back, one of our sisters. She wants to make a statement first, and then the question. Her statement is, it warms my heart to see many of the Islamic leaders that I learned my deen from united in trying to reunite our broken communities. With the permission of Allah, please keep up the good work. May Allah Ta'ala put khair in that sister's house. Ameen. May Allah put nur in front of her and behind her. Ameen. Above her and below her. Ameen. May Allah guide her, help her children, her mother and her father, cause all her people to come into this deen. Ameen. The question for the sister is, where do we go from here? What are our next practical steps as we attempt to heal the wounds, as we attempt to reunite, and as we attempt to move forward? There are many who want to assist with this effort. Barakallah fikum. This question, inshallah, is going to go to my left to Sheikh Abi Dhahira. Where do we go from here? Smart man.
Where do we go from here? First and foremost, we need to regroup. I think we've lost something along the way, and that is one of the things that I feel like that we've lost is our respect for our elders and those who've come before us. And we need to rethink this whole situation here. And moving forward, one of the first things that we need to do is we need to bring our elders back into the discussion. Those with experience, those who have 30 years, 40 years of leading communities, those who have been in the trenches, building masajid, and have been leading people. We need to bring those individuals back to the table and put them at the forefront to hear what they have to say and bring their discussion forward. And myself, even being asked this question, I feel a little bit feel a little bit uneasy, uncomfortable even answering it, being as though I have two of my own elders sitting here with me, Abu Usama and Sheikh Abu Usama and Sheikh Abu Muslima. These are the types of questions that we need to ask and put towards them. We're going to be looking for their leadership in helping us and helping direct us. Yes, us young people, we're not going to take us out of the discussion. We're not going to remove ourselves because we got the energy. Alhamdulillah, we can move and shake better than people who are old. But we need their wisdom because they lived a long time, so they've seen some stuff and they know some stuff that we as young people we don't know because we haven't lived that long yet. And I think that in moving forward, if you're asking my advice, then the first step will be to look to those elders so that we can gain from them their wisdom and seek their advice and to say, hey, where are we at right now? And where should we be going? And how should we be trying to get there? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us and guide us.
To add on to that, we're going to ask Sheikh Abu Muslima to chime in, because that was a good point that Abu Dhahira made. From your experience and being a leader of a community for a minute now, how do you feel we should be moving forward practically based upon what we're doing here in this initiative?
As a person, I'm very optimistic. And I see oftentimes only the good and not the bad. So I don't necessarily share the outlook of maybe some of you. I agree with you. I just don't have the same outlook as you. We are always going. I didn't come here today to start today. I started in 1978. It's been a long journey from there to today. It's been a lot of challenges and obstacles. There's been a lot of growth and progress. And that's what I've seen up until today. So I don't think there's anywhere for us to start now. We've been doing it. Let's continue to do it. Let's try to be more correct. And let's continue to do as best as we could. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us.
Okay, my man back there holding our little niece or nephew. Our little nephew.
In regards to, this is directed towards Abu Muslim, Abu Salman, and Shadiq. In regards to trying to bring and rectify the fitna in the community, and taking positions as the young brother earlier was speaking about in regards to dealing with the ikhtilaf, in regards to them looking down on you when you're not taking their position, and how to fit the narration, la young buggy, and ideally how do we deal with that in regards to the situation in all of our communities? Because there's no one isolated community is going through the fitna. I think all of the communities are going through fitna in regards to dealing with unity.
So the brother is asking in terms of practically moving forward and dealing with the situation, you have those people who are the adversaries, the opponents. And there's a hadith that the Prophet mentioned that he said, the Prophet ﷺ said, it is not acceptable for the believer to belittle himself. So the companion said, how does the believer belittle himself, Ya Rasulullah? He said, for the person, he allows himself to put himself in a situation that he can't handle. No. So he belittled himself in that regard. So moving forward, how do we harmonize? How do we deal with that? We go with Sheikh Abu Zubayr. Tafadhal.
Bismillah. So first, this is two sides to this coin. And what we're dealing with right now is just the one side. We're dealing with the side that those of us who now are tired of a lot of the fitna that has come in and out of a lot of these communities. And we are now taking action to now begin remedying that situation. That's what we're doing here. Because outside of these four walls, there are just as many people who are confused, just as many people who will say, okay, that's good, but I'm still going with this sheikh said about this person or that person. So that's a whole other side that we have to deal with. But we need to deal with this part right now. And it's just like anyone who, if you are in the sports and you get hurt, and after the sports player gets hurt, he has to go through therapy. This is our therapy right here. And so to ask, where do we go from here? I think that's putting the cart before the horse. Why? Because this just happened. This just happened out of nowhere. This just happened out of nowhere. Many of the people in this room right now, as I said earlier, a year ago would not be sitting in this room. Many. There's brothers that I've passed in the hallway that a year ago would not have even given me salams. You understand? And then we're talking about where do we go from here? Let's heal first. Let's heal first. This is therapy right here. It's therapy for people to just come here, because I'm sure many people came here just to see what was going on. Wanted the imagery to have an impact on your iman. And just coming here, seeing the people here, seeing some of the faces here, was enough to kind of just replenish your faith. Not even listening to the lectures, just the image to see brothers and sisters cohesively cooperating and passing each other in the hallway. And I sat and I watched. I'm very perceptive. I see it. I watch brothers hug each other. I watch sisters engage with each other. And I'm saying to myself, yes, that's what we need. That is the starting point right there. And we don't need to move no further from that. See, we're always talking about, well, what's the next step? What's the next step? And we haven't. Put the carpet down first and then put your throne on top of the carpet. We always looking for what's the next step, and we haven't even completed the step that we're on. Because this is only the beginning. When you leave here and you post a link to your Facebook page or you share a picture, you talk about something, you're going to get opposition. You're going to get people that's going to say, I'm unfollowing you because you went to that event. And you're worried about the next step. Can you even stand in your discomfort when someone says, unfollow me? You went to that bid'ah event that you went with all them deviants on the stage. Unfollow me. And now you back at square one, looking at the same people that you just shared the space with, as if we deviants all over again. You understand what I'm saying? Like Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, La takunu im'a. Don't be an im'a. Don't be a follower. In ahsan al-nas ahsant. Wa in asa'u asat. ألا يوطن أحدكم نفسه إن كفر الناس أن لا يكفر. He said, don't be a follower. If everybody else do good, then you're going to do good. Everybody going to the event? I'm going. Everybody take from Abu Muslim now? All right, I guess he cool now. People listening to Shadeed Muhammad now? Okay, I guess he's cool now. Because everybody's doing it. La takunu imma. Don't be a follower. If people do good, then you do good. If people do bad, then you do bad. He said, let one of you condition himself. أَلَا يُوَطِّنُ أَحَدَكُمْ نَفْسَهُ. Let one of you condition himself that if the entire dunya disbelieve, you not going to disbelieve. That's your next step. Learning how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Stop looking for the next step, because this is only the beginning. If you are not able to stand in your own discomfort, looking at the next step is really irrelevant.
This is just the beginning. We just stuck our toe in the water. There will be opposition. What do you do next week when one of these guys go to Sheikh Rabi'a or this sheikh or that sheikh and get a fatwa saying that the people who went to that was deviants and these people are this? What do you do at that point? Do you go back into your, you know what I mean, in your zombie mode? You go back into, you know, your sunken place? Real talk. Because I'm past the whole, you know, kumbaya. I'm past that, man. When you've been walking in your discomfort by yourself, as Abu Muslim said, that I didn't come here to start uniting. Y'all left the masjid. I remained the imam. I stayed in my spot. I stood in my discomfort. Y'all left. Y'all moved to Atlanta. You moved to Masjid Rahma. You moved here. He stayed put. Still the imam of the same masjid. He didn't come here to establish unity. As far as he's concerned, he never budged from the tariq. He was still on the same path. So we talking about what the next step is. The next step is to stay right where we are and learn how to heal. Learn how to treat the Muslim like a Muslim. As Brother Hassan said, giving the Muslim the bare minimum of his haqq. That's the next step. Because many of us haven't even been doing that. Think about the last time you did not give a Muslim salams. Think about the time that you walked in this door and you saw people that you was uncomfortable giving the salams to yesterday. Right here in this room, right now. And then we're talking about what the next step is. The next step is right where we are right now, learning how to heal, this therapy that we're doing right now. You break your leg playing football and you go through therapy. You're not asking the coach, when can I get back out on the field? Coach is like, go through your therapy, man. Your getting back out on the field will be determined by the way that you heal. Our next step will be determined by how we heal here. That next step will automatically, you think all of this came into play by itself? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was controlling it from the very beginning. Every single one of us is here right now by the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You didn't know if you were going to have work. You didn't know if you were going to have the money. And all of it came together. That's not a coincidence. We're not all here at the same time in the same place for the same reason due to coincidence. Give Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a little more credit than that, man. We here completely by the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything could have went wrong. But we here. So in terms of, you know, what the next step is, I don't see a next step at this point until we learn how to get past where we are right now. Learning how to heal. This is our therapy. And then as we begin to become comfortable giving the Muslim the bare minimum of his haqq, then how we heal from that will determine what our next step is. But I mean, I think we do need vision. I think leaders in the community should provide the community with a vision so that we can work towards something. Because as of right now, we're working ourselves out of the negative. And we can't really begin to see a lot of the other side of the negative until we can kind of get ourselves out of that completely. And that's just my perception. Somebody else might be a little bit more optimistic.
Concerning what Abu Zubayr mentioned, Ikhwani, concerning what, okay, Sheikh, we're going to come to. Concerning what Abu Zubayr mentioned about healing, I just want to say there is a poetry that the Arabs have. It's really profound. The meaning of the poetry, they said that the sword of the enemy, when it hits you, it hurts. But the sword of your family member, when it hits you, it hurts even more. The sword is a sword, it's the same wound. But you just didn't expect it from your brother. You didn't expect it from your aunt, your uncle, your moms, your pops. So as it relates to the dawah that we have been upon for a minute now, when you get your own brothers, the people who are upon what you're upon, with differences, saying what they're saying, there's a level of hurt in that. And you'll be hard pressed to find a real human being who would deny that. The person says, man, that don't bother me. I was mentioning yesterday how I never drank the Kool-Aid from day one. Alhamdulillah. And I don't mention that to brag or boast, but I mention that from the angle of the ni'mah of Allah. Never drink Kool-Aid. But at the same time, it's not a good feeling to be at odds with my brothers. It's not a good feeling, wallahi. But I don't lose any sleep over it because I know people are tripping out. I want to say that. So this thing about healing, some of us, we get these ideas that conjure up in our mind, Dr. Phil, Oprah Winfrey, healing, you know, that type thing. It's one of them buzzwords that's kind of corny, but it's real. You have to heal from the divorce. You have to heal from the relationship. You have to heal from the molestation. You have to heal from what happened.
The trauma.
So as a community, we do have to heal, which brings me to the second point. And I mentioned this earlier. Our host for this program, the brothers and sisters from Baytul Nasr. The brothers and sisters from Baytul Nasr, a lot of what's being spoken about is over some of their heads. Some of them know what's going on, and some of them don't. Despite that fact, we wanted to acknowledge that this is a call for unity, and they are automatically included. Like everybody else in this city and outside of the city, people are listening to us. The CD, whatever goes overseas, wherever it goes, we're trying to be united with the Muslims, white, black, whoever you are, upon the Kitab and the Sunnah, according to the understanding of the Salaf of this Ummah, those righteous predecessors. So we want to say, from my knowledge and what I heard recently, there were a number of conferences like this where people came and talked about unity recently from other communities in AC. I'm going to tell you straight up and down like 6 o'clock. These people who put this program on right now, these last 3 days, I feel a particular vibe that those of you who have been on the scene of our dawah back in the day in Arlington, Texas, in Detroit, or, you know, in, what was that place after Arlington, Texas?
Chicago.
Detroit, Michigan, those days, Detroit, Chicago, we used to have these conferences and the Brotherhood was there. Yeah. I've seen people from Mr. Rahman here. I've seen people from Germantown here. I've seen people who, for some time, they were, you know, we had these issues. So we just want to thank Allah Azza wa Jal for our brothers and sisters from Masjid Bayt al-Nasr for the role that they've played in putting this together. And the role that they've played. And they don't know, I believe, the many layers of khair that this thing has brought.
MashaAllah.
People have gotten an opportunity to sit down and talk and to iron things out. People have apologized. People hug. People talk. And we're not on some hippie thing, but the beauty of Islam, a lot of times in that drama, in that mud that we're in, we don't taste, feel, live the beauty of Islam because we're at war. You know, the Crips and the Bloods. We're at war with each other, wasting time. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put it in the mawazeen of hasanat of the brothers and sisters from Bayt al-Nasr, especially the hard-working family of the Muhammads. Especially. But we're going to come to that at another time, inshallah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another thing over here in the corner, over here, my Arab brother, right here. Yesterday I made a mention of people, how we were laughing and things like that, and I was thinking maybe this is not cool. I said, no, the context is cool because the Mardiya show is kind of laid back, and we're talking and we're rapping amongst ourselves, so it can't be shadid. But personally, in the middle of a talk in my masjid, I don't want the students eating and passing things out. This is etiquette we don't allow. And I said, like this water. But I didn't mean that, brother. And me and him hooked up since then, and I apologize. But I want to bring to light Sister Dawn, Sister D. She's one of the old school sisters from Bayt al-Nasr. I was walking outside this morning. She came to me and said, excuse me, Brother Imam. You know how they say it, old school. She said, you know that thing you said there? That brother is one of the few Arabs who come to our masjid. He got his feet in the mud with us. And what you said, it kind of probably came off. You didn't mean it like that, but it could have hurt his feelings, and it was in front of all the people. I said, shukran, sister. We give nasiha, and we accept the nasiha. And once you get an imam or leader, da'i, he ain't listening to you, blow your nose on that cat and throw him away. Because what's the good of that? You gotta give nasiha, you gotta accept nasiha. So we say, nose, put knots on it. So we say to Sister Dawn, may Allah bless you. Next question is for our brother over here, because he has special needs. Because I thought you were doing that now, Sheikh.
No, don't do it while you're talking.
Yeah.
Take a pause.
Yeah, go ahead and switch it, Sheikh. We thought you were doing, I was giving you the buffer time to make that happen.
We're gonna edit the snot out. We're gonna edit that one out.
Sadiq,
Well,
you're
my
dead.
brother gets the thing together. We have a question that came from the back. Again, when they didn't say that, they had no doubt. وَمَا بَدُّلُوا تَبْدِيلًا. They didn't change, they just believed it. So the point here is, he did that and he got the rock up. And they built the masjid. And he helped to build the masjid. That's Islam. You're in the Muslim world, in Arabia, the government is paying for everything. You don't have to pay for nothing. No thing. It's a double negative. You don't have to pay for nothing. You don't have to pay for anything there. Just go to school, go to the mosque, air conditioning on all day, the light bill. You ain't got to worry about nothing. That's not our reality. Listen to this. Listen to this. We have these brothers, they're two sides of the same coin. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them that studied in Damaj, they're one side of the coin, Yemen. And the other side of the coin are the other brothers, and they don't get along. Sheikh Muqbil was from our ulama and our shield. Sheikh Muqbil was hardcore, strong, and he said, it is not from the sunnah that you should beg and ask for money. This is begging. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't get up in the masjid and say, hey guys, come on, give us some money, we gotta pay the bill. You shouldn't do that. Instead of people having enough sense to say, well, if we do that, we won't be able to pay our bills. If we don't ask our community, we need money. They just say, we got to do what the sheikh said. Because if you were the one who would dare to say, come on, brothers, come on. Hey, this is not Yemen. If we don't make the people go in their pocket not make, if we don't encourage them to do this thing, we ain't going to get money. You're scared to say that because you're the odd man out. So this is what I'm talking about when I say insanity, stupidity, immaturity. That's a juvenile understanding of Islam. So what's the point, guys? This conference is the first conference these people ever put on. You make mistakes in the first conference. Maybe we could have done with 3 or 4 people here, 2 or 3 people, maybe. Maybe we could have done it in another place. Maybe this, maybe that. But it is what it is. And we have fallen short concerning the bills. And we just want to break even, and we just want to make this thing a success. So we're going to open up the floor right now. We're going to try to get the money for that. I wish I could just stop right there, and you guys are encouraged, especially you women, all of you though, not just you women. I just wish we could just stop there and people just say, look man, say no more, I'm gonna do what I can do. So this is what we want to do.
We don't have to do the whole everybody get up. What we need right now is upwards of $4,000. So we need just 4 people to write a check, $4,000. I mean, literally, it's that simple. Or 8 people to write a check for $500. Are we really a community that cannot afford to write a check for $500? I seen a brother the other day, I was at the mall, and the brother had on red bottom shoes, Gucci shoes. He had on a black thobe, he had on some red bottom Gucci's. Shoes upwards of $1,000 that we spend on shoes. And we can't write a check for $500. In the world that I come from, that's called hustling backwards. Because you got a nice pair of foot gear, but you have nowhere to put your head at. You got something nice for your feet, but you have nowhere for your head. We need 4 people to write a check for $1,000. And this is the difference between our communities and some of the other communities that I've been to doing fundraisers. I did a fundraiser in South Jersey, maybe 2 years ago. And when I arrived, this was on Imam Siraj's call. I was in Philly doing a lecture. Imam Siraj called me and said, listen, I'm stuck in the airport in Atlanta. I was supposed to do a fundraiser in South Jersey. I can't get there. Can you please go there today and do the fundraiser? They'll take care of you. Don't worry about it. I said, okay. When I got to the masjid, I asked the imam, I said, how much are you trying to collect tonight? So I have an idea. He said, $250,000. I said, what? He said, yeah, the people, they got it. He said, start off with $50,000. Now, mind you, I come from predominantly African-American communities. Starting off your fundraising with $50,000 is unheard of in our communities. Unheard of. So I said, you sure? He said, yeah. Start the fundraising now. I said, is there anyone in here who can write a check for $50,000? Nobody's hand went up. Said again, is there anyone in here? They were trying to expand the masjid and build a school. Said, is there anyone in here that can write a check for $50,000? I had one hand go up. I was blown away. Guy went over to the table. He took out his checkbook. He wrote the check for $50,000. So I asked a couple of more times. That was the only one. So I went down to about $25,000. So is there anyone in here that can write a check for $25,000? 2 hands went up. 2 checks for $25,000. Asked a couple of more times, and then I went down to $10,000. I said, is there anyone in here that can write a check for $10,000? At least 10 hands went up. As if they were waiting for me to get down to 10 grand. 10 hands went up. And then from there on, I went to 5,000 and then to 1,000. When I got to 1,000, I said, is there anyone in here who can give $1,000, write a check for $1,000? At least 20 hands went up in the room. This is the type of economic stability that we lack in our communities. So while we do all this talking about Quran, Sunnah, Salafiyah, and that sounds good. It does. But when it comes down to putting our money and investing into what we say we believe in, that's where the buck stops with us. Because we good if we can sit back and talk about it. Sounds real good. What you on, what you ain't on, how much you know, how much somebody else doesn't know. Well, when it comes time to investing in that, the Prophet ﷺ, he said only to his companions, they wanted to buy bi'r al-ma'una. Whoever purchases this well, they want to get the water. The well belonged to a wealthy man. And the Prophet ﷺ wanted the well for his companions because they were getting ready to go to war and they wanted to settle in that place and they needed to make use of the water in that well. The Prophet wanted the whole well. He said, whoever purchases bi'r al-ma'una falahu al-jannah, then for him is Jannah. He first went to the owner of the well and he asked him, just give it to me sadaqah, and for you is Jannah. And the man said, O Messenger of Allah, this is my provision. This is how I feed my family. The Prophet said, okay, I'm not going to press you for it. So he appealed to his companions. Whoever can purchase bi'r al-ma'una, then for him is Jannah. Uthman said, I got it. Whatever it is, what's your price? I got it. Don't worry about it. The area where the masjid was going to be built, the Prophet ﷺ let his camel walk. He said, Da'ha fa'innaha ma'mura. Let her go, because she's commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Habasaha habas al-fil. She's going to stop the same place where the one who controlled the elephants made them stop, meaning during the story of Abraham. Qaswa kneeled at a particular place, and that particular land belonged to two orphans. They offered to give it to the Prophet ﷺ for free. The Prophet ﷺ, a man of integrity, he said, no, I'm not going to ask you to do something for free, because that's our issue. We want everything for free. We go out into the vendors. How much is this? We want to barter with the vendor. Can I get it for $10? Do you go to Walmart and barter with Walmart? You pay whatever's on the price tag. But we want everything for free. See, this is the part of the religion that gets complicated for us, the socio-economic piece. The economics of our religion. We don't hear a lot of talking about that. But when we talk about who's on the hot, when I'm on, when I'm not on, that's included in that. The Prophet ﷺ, he appealed to his companions, and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said, I'll purchase the land. The Masjid al-Nabawi, that plot of land, it wasn't as big as it is now, but that plot of land where the masjid started being built was purchased by Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. That means that everyone who prays in Masjid al-Nabawi, the hasanat go to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. We're talking about sadaqah jariyah. You understand what I'm saying? We're talking about sadaqah jariyah. So we're talking about money, spending in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So again, I appeal to you. Is there anyone, can we get 4 people, and we can do away with all of this charity stuff, 4 people to write a check for $1,000, and we can call it a night. $1,000? Allahu Akbar. $1,000? 500. Can we get someone else to match the 500? Well, you ballers in here. 5 brothers get together, put $100 together, and let's match that. 500? 1,000. That's 2,500 right there. All right, we need to match that. You can come up with another 25. And can we get 5 brothers to put $100 a piece together and come up with 500? 100. Allahu Akbar. 100. 100. That's 3. 5. Allahu Akbar. 3,000. 100. 300. 100. All right, we at $3 grand now. 100. Another 100. Where you at, Shamik? Come on with the buckets. Imam Bilal. Come on. Imam Bilal. Allahu Akbar. This is what I'm talking about. Because this is where it gets critical. This is where it gets critical. This event was shouldered by a community that is very small, but they put on some big shoes. It took a lot to reach out to every imam that sat up here who has been warned against, with the exception of Sheikh Hassan. Alhamdulillah, you haven't had the privilege to be warned against, and consider yourself highly favored and blessed. But for the rest of us, unfortunately, it took a lot to reach out to somebody like me, somebody like Abu Muslim, Abu Osama, Abu Zahira. I don't know if Abu Zahira has been warned against. I never heard your name come up with me. Maybe in some personal circles.
He's Dal.
You know. Yes. How soon do we need it? Like yesterday. How about tomorrow? Allahu Akbar. You gonna write a check? Huh? As much as you got. Allahu Akbar. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala return to you every dime you spend in His cause, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala multiply, even if you don't come back, for your intention. You're rewarded. Even those of us that are sitting here that said, I wish I had it. I wish I had it. You're still rewarded for your anta ma'jur. You are ma'jura as a sister. You are rewarded from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just for your intention alone. So what I'm saying is that when it comes to the fundraising part, we shouldn't have to do the whole brothers and sisters give this, give that. We shouldn't have to do that. If it's something like a debt of $4,000, we should be able to come to 4 people and say, hey, listen, we need a check for $1,000. If we are a community that is looking for forward mobility, and we have community members that cannot write a check for $1,000 and not be hurting after doing so, we're doing something wrong. We're doing something wrong. The Sahaba weren't broke. The Prophet ﷺ was not broke. Does anyone know how he used to take care of his family? He had 9 wives at one time and children. Does anyone know? And stepchildren. Salama said, I didn't want to marry him because I have, I'm an older woman and I have children. He said, as for your age, I'm older than you. As for your jealousy, I'll make dua that Allah remove your jealousy. As for your children, Allah and His Messenger will take care of your children. Don't worry about that. How did he take care of this huge family that he had? He had a number. He diversified his income in modern terms. He had multiple ways that he earned his income. And that's your homework for tonight. Find out. The Prophet ﷺ didn't ask for handouts. He didn't ask people for money. He said the best food that a man can eat, amal yadi, is what his hands work for. Prophet Dawood ﷺ used to work with his hands. He had multiple ways that he used to earn an income to take care of his family. Sometimes he would give his family enough for a whole entire year. We don't have to do the whole, what rent is due, or I need money for groceries. He gave his family enough money for an entire year. So when, this whole economic piece, and maybe that'll be our next conference, because we need to start talking about economics. And I know that concept is a little foreign to some of us. It's like, here you go on this deviant stuff. Well, talking about economic stability in our community is being a deviant, then I'm a deviant. Yes.
Wait out to the masjid.
Say it again. Imam Bilal, who do they write the check out to? Write the check out to.
You need to spell it. You need to spell it.
We do have a paper.
How do you spell it?
We do have a PayPal.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you have if the masjid has like a PayPal account.
Masjid has a PayPal account.
If what's that address?
What's the address to the PayPal account? Honestly, I don't really know much about PayPal with it. I've never really used it myself.